Here we are for another round of the 70s versus the 90s, and it's a Parker-style showdown when I put John Flynn's The Outfit against John Irvin's City of Industry. And this one was a hard decision to make because both of these movies are kind of really very true to their material, and there's a lot of great moments and performances. So let's just dive right on in to the nitty and the picky. First up, we have John Flynn's The Outfit, which is based off of the Richard Stark novel of the same name, and it stars Robert Duvall as the character Macklin. It's supposed to be Parker, but they changed the names because Richard Stark wanted them to have. They only wanted to use the name Parker if it was going to be in a series. So instead of Parker, his name's Earl Macklin in this. And the film opens as one of the best openings that I've ever seen in a film. It's very much of a thriller. Like John Flynn definitely had a flair for making thrillers and stuff. And we see his brother get murked by these two hitmen, and then we see him getting released from jail, and then he finds out that his brother was murdered, as well as they're also trying to take him out, and he basically corrals the hitman that's sent to kill him, and figures out what's going on. It turns out that him and his brother and his friend Cody had pulled a job that was a fucking outfit owned bank and stuff. And so now the outfit's trying to take them out. It's like you hit them, they hit you type of shit. And the character Cody is played brilliantly by Jodan Baker. Like, I'm not a big Jodan Baker fan, but this is one of the few performances where he wasn't just playing an asshole. He's actually badass in this. And so now Macklin decides, like, well, I'm just gonna rob the outfit, because like the thing about the outfit, they've never been robbed because nobody even dares do it, because they definitely would get the shit kicked out or dead more likely. And so he holds up this poker game that is being held in a hotel, and Timothy Carey, one of the greatest character actors of all time and one of the wildest motherfuckers to ever live, is the guy that put the hit out on him. And so he ends up fucking with him, and this kind of has him chasing him throughout the whole film and stuff. The film itself is filled with a bevy of great character actors, not just Timothy Carey, but like Elijah Cook, Richard Jekyll, and Bill McKinney. Richard Jekyll and Bill McKinney, they play brothers in the film when Macklin and Cody have to go get a car, and there's a really intense scene. The film itself is filled with a lot of intense scenes, specifically that when they go get the car, because then the woman that's married to Bill McKinney is claiming that fucking Cody tried to rape her and everything, and there's a showdown there, and even that poker game sequence is fucking great. Like anytime they're ripping off one of the outfit places, like that shit just done so perfectly and stylistically. And of course Jerry Fielding did the music. Jerry Fielding, one of the most underrated composers of all time. Everybody talks about great movie composers, but Jerry Fielding very seldom gets brought up unless we're talking about Peckinpah films. But he did a lot more other films outside of Peckinpah's filmography that just you can just tell it's a Jerry Fielding score because it's so immersive into the film, and it also is so haunting, and it really fits with what's going on in the film. And of course Karen Black also plays Macklin's girlfriend, who she's a pretty good performance from Karen Black. She's not as annoying as she usually is. She's a far cry, in a way kind of similar to the part she plays in Five Easy Pieces, but she's actually very useful. She's kind of the driver, and she'll run motherfuckers over. Like she sadly gets shot at the end. That's a very somber moment, for these two hard asses, and Macklin and Cody. You kind of see that this shit did affect them. They're not complete animals. They still have feelings and shit like that and stuff. And there's, like I said, even like there's just so many great moments in this film, especially like when they're buying the guns from that Amos guy, and it's very faithful to the book. Other than like maybe they make a few changes here and there, and of course with the names and stuff. But I feel like it's a very true adaptation of the book. And of course Robert Ryan plays the head of the outfit, and Robert Ryan, of course, one of the most underrated actors of all time. That dude was so fucking brilliant. I think this might have been his last film, or damn near close to one of his last films. And you can see that he's weathered and just tired and shit, but still like owning it, But and like I said, this film's chock full of action, and the chemistry between Robert Duvall and Jodan Baker is fucking phenomenal. Like when they're on screen together, it's just pure fucking brilliance. The movies, in a way, it's fun gritty and intense. And John Flynn is a director that really knows how to balance all of these elements and stuff to make a solid crime picture. And then we move forward to John Irvin's City of Industry, which is not based off of a Parker novel, but it feels like, they were trying to make a Parker style film, because the Harvey Keitel is basically playing a Parker-esque character, and Harvey Keitel is absolutely brilliant in the film. So it basically centers around a group of guys pulling a job, like kind of a diamond heist. And, it's a Timothy Hutton who plays Harvey Keitel's brother in the film. He's the one that kind of set it up. And he's got another guy that coming in. He's married to Famke Jensen's got a couple of kids with her and stuff, but he's also on his way to being back in jail and stuff. And then Stephen Dorff, who is just absolutely brilliant in the film, that fucking psychotic as all hell. And, he's the wild card, basically. And then when all these, they pull the job and they think it's successful, then all of a sudden fucking Stephen Dorff's character just flips the fuck out and just shoots Timothy Hutton and the other guy, and then think he's going to try to get Harvey Keitel, but, you don't get Harvey Keitel. Harvey Keitel gets you, and he fucking runs off. And so now Harvey Keitel is on a mission to find out where the fuck Stephen Dorff's character named Skip in the film, where the fuck he's at. And, he kind of has a bit of bad luck here and there. He seeks help from Famke Jensen to try to figure out, like, who the fuck or where the fuck Skip is. And, she's hesitant at first, but then when he gets fucking jumped by a couple of Asians and ends up, like, almost dead on her doorstep, she nurses him back to health, and she decides to help him with, as long as he pays her $100,000. And, so then they kind of team up in a way. She's sort of a femme fatale, I guess, by proxy. She's not a full-on femme fatale, but she's definitely got the look of a femme fatale and would play plenty of those parts all through the 90s. And then, but the thing about City of Industry, though, is for all of its, like, great, like, whereas, like, the outfit had so many great side characters, City of Industry doesn't really have that many great side characters. I mean, like, Michael Jai White has a brief part in it, and that dude's always brilliant and stuff. But it just doesn't always land the way the outfit does, Although it is a solid thriller, I will say that much. It definitely, for a crime caper film, it definitely checks all the boxes. And Harvey Keitel and Stephen Dorff are absolutely brilliant in the film, but most of these motherfuckers are just phoning it in. And I would say John Irvin is not really the director that John Flynn is here, because there's moments where it's like, just throw a little jazzy score in there and to fill in the gaps and stuff. It doesn't have that intensity and that sense of danger that the outfit has. There are some pretty crazy moments, like when Skip does, double cross them, that one, that whole sequence in the trailer park is very, very well done. And then, of course, like that fucking when Harvey Keitel overtakes the Asians that are trying to kill him, that one was pretty badass too. But the ending climax just kind of leaves a lot to be desired. Like, where the action and the outfit was just so intense and felt realistic. It's like almost at times City of Industry feels like a made-for-TV movie, which a lot of these, like, crime films of the 90s were, like, so, like, low budget, low key that, like, nobody really, like, put that much effort into them. Where, like, in the 70s, for some reason, like, gritty action films, especially crime films, were, like, just the bread and butter. They tried to make them as realistic as possible, like, because John Flynn just went through a whole book of the great, with his casting director, all the greatest character actors they could throw together. And it feels like here in City of Industry, they just couldn't, like, find the best actors and stuff. But I mean, when you got somebody like Harvey Keitel, you expect him to just carry the film, and he does it. But there are times where, like, he's just phoning it in, and definitely far from one of his best performances, but definitely not one of his worst. And of course, Stephen Dorff, absolutely brilliant as a fucking psycho. But I got to give this round to the outfit, because I think the outfit is just a way better movie, and it's a more solid film. I don't have any complaints with the outfit. I can kind of pick City of Industry apart, and even though Harvey Keitel wins in the end and everything kind of works out, it's just almost like it doesn't really compete with just like Robert Duvall and Joe Don Baker driving off laughing, because they really did. They fucked the outfit 3 ways to Sunday and shit. Whereas like Harvey Keitel, that dude barely gets away alive, but he kills the fucker that killed his brother and all this shit. So it's like everything all comes together. But this round still has to go to the outfit because it's just a way better movie. So for anybody keeping score, that is 70-57. 70s are up by 13 now. It looked like the 90s had a pretty good streak going, but 70s come back. They're actually on a 2-film streak right now. So we'll see how long that stays up. And if I've said anything wrong, anything you disagree with, feel free to eviscerate me in the comments. I mean, this is one asshole's opinion on a self-indulgent journey to figure out which decade was better for movies, the 70s or the 90s. And looking like I'm right, I mean, that lead is still considerable. I mean, 13 up, the 70s are kicking mucho ass. And, like the 90s, they really got to pull it together to beat them. So if you got any suggestions, feel free to add those. Many more of these will pop up. The next main event for Saturday will be The Man from Hong Kong versus Rush Hour. So stay tuned for that and a few more bonus rounds that'll pop up whenever I've got time. It might be cold as hell, but this is certainly heating up.